But so the Yayo relationship's not going to one day turn into a 50 Cent interview? If you were a betting man, do you think it would happen?
It might. I mean, there's been a discussion around that.
Really?
Yeah, with 50. Not with me and 50, but with me talking through someone. Like me and 50 haven't talked together in quite a while, probably like maybe 10 years.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? We just don't particularly have a reason, but there's been a conversation with 50 doing a Vlad TV interview, and he understands the significance of that. It's not like, you know, when he does the Breakfast Club and he's promoting Tycoon Weekend, it's different than if he sits down with me. It's going to be a different type of interview, and he understands that. So will it happen one day? Will it not? I don't know. You know, our budgets keep getting bigger and bigger. Like, you know, the amount of money we spent on that Warren Sapp, Michael Irving thing was more than we've ever spent on an internet. Like the total production of it and the amount of money that got spent was bigger than any production we've ever done before. But the final product is dope. So ultimately we feel it'll pay for itself over time.
Right.
You know, at some point, I feel that we'll be in a position to pay $1 million for an interview.
Jesus.
You know, $100,000 for an interview, there's already been discussions around that.
Wow.
Right. Although we haven't, there's never been deals that have been like we've never. There's no interviews that are out that we paid that much.
Who's worth $1 million? Who's even close?
Who's worth $1 million?
$1 million?
An OJ tell-all.
Okay. Yeah. Damn.
An OJ tell-all talking about the exactly what happened in the murder, his role in it.
Wow.
Which he kind of did in the book. If I did it, remember?
I heard about it. Yeah,
I read it. I read passages from the book.
Was it disturbing?
That.
Did it feel like it was actually what happened?
Somewhat. I don't know how. I mean, he talked about the night of the murder, and I guess there was another person involved in the killing of his wife and the other guy, Ron Goldman. You know, for OJ to sit down and say, "I'm going to tell you exactly what happened at every point in detail."
If you wanted to be in the conversation, $1 million probably is where you're gonna have to be at, because that's what the fucking TV networks and shit might be offering, right?
Well, we've had a conversation with OJ's guy. Like, you know, I talked. You know, me and OJ were DMing. You know, essentially.
I DM'd him too. That's funny.
Right, yeah.
And I got a nice civil response. Who knows if it was him or an assistant, but saying I'm not doing interviews at this time, but I'll let you know in the future.
He actually referred the guy that handles that, and me and the guy had a conversation, and we were talking about doing the interview, and we were talking about, you know, in the 6 digits, but his thing was that OJ doesn't want to talk about the entire year that the whole murder occurred. He just wants that taken out of the conversation.
I'm sure he would want that. Yeah. Well, I'm not paying $100 grand for fucking you not talking about the interesting part of your life.
It wasn't $100 grand. It was more than $100 grand.
Okay.
So I'm not going to spend that type of money and have that black hole, you know, just be empty from that. Listen, you know, when we interviewed Sammy the Bull, we paid a significant amount of money for that interview, and it took 2 years to put that interview together because they didn't want to do the interview we wanted to do.
Because you wanted to be able to ask him about every murder.
Yeah.
And he had done other interviews beforehand, though, but did you feel like they left a lot on the table?
Well,
I didn't watch any of his other ones. I watched yours.
No one did it in the way that I did it, right? And then even the day of, there was almost a walkout in the process because he didn't want to talk about a bunch of shit. His granddaughter was there. His granddaughter was sort of like the voice of reason that actually made all this happen. So shout out to Sammy's granddaughter, a very cool young lady. But it was like when we got down to it, the final compromise before we turned on the camera was we could talk about everything except for the murder of his brother-in-law, his wife's brother, and the whole ecstasy bust in Arizona, which he had a deal, I think, with National Geographic to talk about that.
Wow.
So I'm like, okay, I could live with that.
Yeah.
I could live with excluding those 2 things, but everything else I'm asking about.
Wow.
And he answered.
Yeah.
And the interview was huge. You know, the full interview is always like in our trending list on, you know, even months after, like millions and millions of people watched it. And although he's done other interviews, it's just not the way I do it.
Right.
And my audience, and my thing was like, I'm going to give my audience what they expect from me.
Right.
And if it takes 2 years to negotiate that, it'll take 2 years to negotiate it.
All right, people, we just hit 300,000 subscribers. You know we're trying to hit 400,000 subscribers. So that little red button, tap it, tap in. Your Appreciate y'all.